My boyfriend said his new project was killing him with late nights, but I found his secret folder and now I know what, or who, he was really working on. My world just exploded, and I'm still picking up the pieces. God, I don't even know where to begin with this. My hands are still shaking, even though it's been. Well, let's just say time has become a very weird concept for me lately. I guess I'm writing this out because I need to get it out of my head, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there will understand, or at least tell me I'm not completely insane for feeling the way I do. I feel like I'm standing in the wreckage of my own life, sifting through debris, trying to figure out which pieces are even real anymore. My boyfriend, Liam, and I had been together for 4 amazing years. We met in college, a cliché rom-com meet cute in the library where he accidentally picked up my copy of 100 Years of Solitude instead of his textbook on C++ programming. He was charming, whip-smart, and had this way of looking at me that made me feel like I was the only person in the universe. We moved in together after graduation, into a cute little 2-bedroom apartment downtown. He was a freelance app developer, always tinkering with new ideas, and I just landed a job as a junior editor at a small publishing house. Life felt settled. Good. Like we were building something solid, brick by brick. About 6 months ago, Liam started talking about a new passion project. He was super vague about it at first, which was unusual for him. Normally, he'd be bouncing off the walls, showing me mock-ups, asking for my opinion on everything from color schemes to user interface. This time, though, it was different. He'd just say things like, "It's big, babe. Really big. Could be the one." He'd get this glint in his eye, a kind of feverish excitement I hadn't seen in a while, and I was happy for him, genuinely. I know how much his work means to him. The late nights started almost immediately. At first, it was just a few extra hours in his home office after I'd gone to bed. I'd hear the soft clatter of his keyboard, the occasional frustrated sigh. I'd make him tea, leave snacks by his door. I was the supportive girlfriend, you know? I figured, this is what you do when your partner is chasing a dream. But then a few extra hours turned into him staying up until 3 or 4 in the morning, sometimes even pulling all-nighters. He started looking constantly exhausted, gray smudges under his eyes, his usual easygoing humor replaced with a tense, coiled energy. Our weekends, which used to be our sacred time for hikes, browsing bookstores, or just lazy brunches, became consumed by the project. He'd be locked in his office, the door always firmly shut. If I knocked, he'd take a long moment to answer, and when he did, he'd seem annoyed, like I was interrupting something incredibly vital. "Can it wait, Sarah? I'm really in the zone," he'd say, his eyes already flicking back to his multiple monitors. I tried to be understanding. I really did. I told myself this was temporary, that this project was important for his career, for our future. But a little seed of unease started to sprout in my gut. He was becoming more and more withdrawn. Our conversations dwindled. Sex became a rarity, and when it did happen, it felt perfunctory. Like he was ticking off a box before rushing back to his digital mistress, the project. He bought a new external hard drive specifically for this project, a sleek black thing he kept locked in his desk drawer. He said it contained sensitive proprietary code and NDA-level stuff that he couldn't risk anyone seeing, not even me. That stung, I won't lie. I've never been a snoopy person. I've always believed trust is the bedrock of a relationship. But him explicitly saying he couldn't trust me with it, even in a non-technical capacity. It felt like a tiny hairline crack forming in that bedrock. The secrecy escalated. He started taking calls in the other room, his voice hushed. When I asked who it was, he'd just say, "Project stuff. You wouldn't understand." He changed his computer password, something he'd never done before. We'd always known each other's passwords, it was never a big deal. Now, his laptop was like Fort Knox. I started feeling lonely, even when he was in the same apartment. It was like living with a ghost, a preoccupied, stressed-out ghost who only materialized for meals and occasionally grunted in response to my attempts at conversation. I tried talking to him about it. "Liam, I miss you," I'd say. "I feel like this project is consuming you and us." He'd sigh, run a hand through his already messy hair, and give me this tired, almost pitying look. "Sarah, I know it's hard. But this is huge. If this takes off, we'll be set. Just a little longer, okay? I promise, it'll be worth it. And he'd kiss my forehead, a dismissive little peck, and retreat back into his cave. And I, like an idiot, would nod and try to swallow the growing lump in my throat. The breaking point, or rather, the point where my unease morphed into actual, sickening suspicion, came about 3 weeks ago. It was a Saturday. Liam had been in his office since Friday morning, claiming he was on a brutal deadline. I hadn't seen him for more than 5 minutes. I was making myself some lunch, feeling particularly miserable and alone, when I heard his office door open. He came out, looking like death warmed over, and mumbled something about needing coffee, stat. He headed to the kitchen, and that's when I saw it. He'd left his keys on his desk. His desk keys? The ones that opened the drawer with the super-secret external hard drive. My heart started hammering. I know, what I did next was wrong. A violation of trust. The irony isn't lost on me, trust me. But at that moment, all the little red flags, all the dismissals, the secrecy, the feeling of being pushed away. It all coalesced into this unbearable pressure. I felt like I was going insane with not knowing. I just needed something. An explanation. Reassurance, maybe. Or, God help me, confirmation of my fears so I could stop feeling like I was imagining things. He was in the kitchen, the coffee machine gurgling. I had maybe a minute. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely pick up the keys. I slipped into his office. The air was stale, smelling of old coffee and an unidentifiable metallic tang from his computer components. His main monitor was on, displaying lines and lines of code I didn't understand. But my eyes were drawn to the desk drawer. I fumbled with the lock, my breath catching in my throat. It clicked open. There it was. The sleek black hard drive. I hesitated for a fraction of a second. This was it. No going back. Then, I grabbed it, unplugged the USB cable that was snaked towards it, he must have been using it just before, and plugged it into my own laptop, which I'd instinctively brought in with me. My laptop is older, slower. It took an eternity for the drive to mount. Every second felt stretched, amplified. I could hear Liam moving around in the kitchen, the clink of a mug. The drive icon popped up. L_project_omega. Omega. The end. How fitting. I clicked on it. Folders. Dozens of them. Codebase. UI_assets. Marketing_strategy. Budget_projections. It all looked normal. Technical. My heart rate started to slow a little. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe he really was just incredibly stressed and bad at communicating it. Then I saw it. Tucked away, almost hidden at the bottom of the main directory, a folder named simply miscellaneous_personal. It didn't have the same professional naming convention as the others. My stomach clenched. This was it. I clicked. The first thing I saw was a subfolder named Inspiration. Okay, that's normal for a creative project, right? I opened it. It was full of images. But not of app interfaces or design trends. It was her. A woman I'd never seen before. Dark, wavy hair, bright green eyes, a small, mischievous smile. There were dozens of photos. Candid shots of her laughing, posed photos where she looked like a model, even a few that were intimate. Her asleep in a messy bed, a close-up of her hand intertwined with a man's hand, Liam's hand. I recognized his watch. My breath hitched. I felt the blood drain from my face. Who was this woman? And why were her photos in his project folder? I clicked back, my mind reeling. There was another subfolder in miscellaneous_personal. This one was labeled C_sketches. I opened it with a sense of dread. It was filled with digital sketches, beautifully rendered. Portraits of the same woman. Some were artistic, ethereal. Others were more than that. Sketches of her in lingerie, sketches of her in suggestive poses. And in the corner of each sketch, a small, almost hidden signature, for Chloe, with all my love, L. Chloe. So that was her name. My world didn't just crack then, it shattered. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me, like I was free falling in a cold, dark void. This wasn't just a project. This was. I didn't even know what this was, but it was a betrayal so profound it stole the air from my lungs. I heard Liam finishing up in the kitchen. Panic seized me. I quickly, frantically, started looking for a way to copy the miscellaneous_personal folder to my laptop. It wasn't huge, mostly images and some text files. While it was copying, my eyes scanned the other file names in miscellaneous_personal. Future_plans.docx. Apartment_hunting_c_l.pdf. Breakup_script_s.docx. Breakup_script_s. S for Sarah. That was me. The copy finished. I ejected the hard drive, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped it. I slammed it back in the drawer, locked it, and put the keys back on his desk, exactly where they were, just as Liam walked back into the office, coffee mug in hand. "Everything okay, babe?" he asked, eyeing me. I must have looked like I'd seen a ghost. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, a jerky, unnatural movement, and practically ran out of the room, back to the relative safety of our bedroom, my laptop clutched to my chest like a life raft. I locked the door, something I never, ever did. I heard him call my name, a flicker of confusion in his voice, but I ignored him. I collapsed onto the bed, my laptop open in front of me. And I started to read. The breakup_script_s.docx was the first thing I opened. It was methodical. Clinical. He'd outlined different scenarios, my possible reactions, and his pre-planned responses. If Sarah cries, offer comfort but remain firm on the decision. If Sarah gets angry, reiterate that this isn't about her failings, but about my own need for something different. Highlight irreconcilable differences, avoid blaming. He even had bullet points on how to divide our belongings, how to manage the lease. It was like I was a project decommission, an old piece of software being phased out. There was no emotion in it, just cold, hard logistics. Then, future_plans.docx. This was a narrative, almost like a diary, but written as if looking forward. It detailed his fantasy life with Chloe. Moving to a new city, they'd shortlisted 3. Her pursuing her art, him launching his groundbreaking app, which, by the way, seemed to be some kind of AI-driven personalized art generation tool, heavily featuring Chloe's artistic style. There were mentions of marriage, children, a life that sounded idyllic, a life that he was meticulously planning while still sharing a bed with me. Apartment_hunting_c_l.pdf was a collection of listings for apartments in those 3 cities, with notes like Chloe would love the natural light in this one or good studio space potential for C. The C_sketches folder, now that I could look at it without his imminent return, was even worse than I first realized. The detail, the adoration in every line he'd drawn of her. It was a perverse shrine. And the inspiration folder. Some of those photos were clearly taken in hotel rooms. One even had a crumpled receipt on a nightstand in the background, dated just 2 weeks ago, from a boutique hotel downtown, a night he told me he was pulling an all-nighter at a co-working space to use their super-fast internet for a massive data upload. I spent the next few hours in a daze, clicking through these files, each one a fresh stab to the heart. The sheer premeditation of it all. This wasn't a moment of weakness, a regrettable mistake. This bill a calculated, long-term deception. He wasn't just working on an app, he was working on erasing me, on building an entirely new life with someone else, all while playing the part of the stressed but devoted boyfriend. The project that was killing him with late nights was the intricate construction of my replacement. I can't even describe the cocktail of emotions. Numbness, mostly. A deep, aching sorrow that settled in my bones. And a cold, simmering anger that was slowly starting to build. He hadn't just cheated. He had orchestrated a shadow life, using me as a comfortable placeholder until his real plans were ready to launch. Our life together, our memories, our future, it was all a lie, a carefully managed narrative he was preparing to rewrite. Liam knocked on the bedroom door a few times. "Sarah? You okay in there? What's going on?" His voice had a note of concern now, probably because my silence was so out of character. I didn't answer. I couldn't. What could I possibly say? How do you even begin to confront someone about something this monstrous? I copied all the files from miscellaneous_personal onto a USB stick I had, then deleted the folder from my laptop, cleared my recent files history, terrified he might somehow check. I needed proof, undeniable proof, not just for myself, but for. I didn't know what yet. For sanity. That night, I pretended to have a migraine. I stayed in bed, facing the wall, while he eventually came in and slept beside me, oblivious. Or maybe not entirely oblivious. He kept trying to touch my arm, asking if I was sure I was okay. His touch felt like fire, like a brand. I flinched away every time. How could he lie there, so close to me, after what I'd seen? After what he'd been planning? The audacity, the sheer cold-bloodedness of it, was staggering. The next day was Sunday. I woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all, my eyes gritty, my body heavy with a grief so profound it felt physical. Liam tried to act normal. He made pancakes, our Sunday ritual. He tried to joke, to coax me out of my mood. I played along, a hollow shell of myself. Every word he said, every smile, every touch felt like a carefully crafted lie. I saw the breakup_script_s.docx flashing in my mind's eye with every interaction. I was watching a performance, and I was the unsuspecting audience who'd accidentally read the script beforehand. I needed a plan. I couldn't just scream at him, not yet. He was too good at manipulating, at twisting things. That stupid script proved it. He had answers for everything. No, I needed to be smart. I needed to understand the full scope of this. Who was Chloe? How long had this been going on? Was the app even real, or just a cover for this elaborate affair? For the next week, I lived a double life. To Liam, I was still Sarah, a bit withdrawn, maybe a little stressed from work myself, attributing my moodiness to that. But inside, I was a detective, piecing together the fragments of his betrayal. I started paying more attention to his project talk. He mentioned collaborating with a new designer, a real talent he'd found. He never said her name, of course. I did some digging. Chloe. The signature on the sketches. I searched for Chloe graphic designer along with some keywords related to app development and the city we lived in. It took a few tries, but I found her. Chloe Ramsey. She had a professional portfolio website and a relatively active Instagram. Her art style was unmistakable. It was the same as the sketches, the same as the inspiration photos. Her Instagram was full of artistic shots, cool cafes, and, if I looked closely, subtle hints. A picture of 2 coffee cups, captioned brainstorming sessions. A photo of her own hand holding a man's hand, Liam's hand, his watch visible again, with a caption about creative synergy. It was all there, hidden in plain sight, if you knew what to look for. Her Instagram also showed her attending a few industry meetups. Liam had been to those same meetups. He told me they were for networking. Now I knew what kind of networking he'd been doing. Based on the dates, this had been going on for at least 5 months, maybe longer. 5 months of lies, of stolen moments, of him building a future with her while I was. What? Keeping his bed warm? Paying half the rent? The anger started to outweigh the sorrow. The sheer disrespect of it all. He hadn't just fallen out of love with me. He had actively deceived me, used me, plotted my disposal like I was an inconvenient piece of old furniture. The breakup script haunted me. He thought he could manage me, control my reactions, make this easy for himself. I started thinking about the app itself. Project Omega. I had a horrible, sinking feeling that Chloe wasn't just his muse, she was deeply integrated into the actual project. Her artistic style, her face, her essence. He was building it around her. What if? What if he'd even used some of my ideas? We used to brainstorm app concepts all the time. Casual conversations over dinner, spitballing silly ideas, some of which were actually pretty good. Had he mined our past for this new venture with his new woman? The thought made me physically ill. I decided I couldn't live like this anymore, in this state of limbo, of knowing and not knowing fully, of pretending. I needed to confront him. But not on his terms. Not according to his script. I waited for a night when I knew he was planning to work late. He told me he had a major milestone to hit. I said, "Okay, honey, do what you need to do. I'll probably just read and go to bed early." He seemed relieved. Once he was ensconced in his office, the door shut, I took out the USB stick. I made copies of everything. I emailed them to myself, to a new, secret email address. I uploaded them to a secure cloud storage account. Then, I sat down and wrote an email. To Chloe. It was the hardest thing I've ever written. I kept it factual, calm. I introduced myself as Liam's girlfriend of 4 years, the woman he lived with. I attached a few key pieces of evidence, the future_plans.docx, with her name prominently featured, a couple of the more intimate sketches he'd signed to her, and a screenshot of the breakup_script_s.docx with the file name clearly visible. I didn't accuse her, I didn't rage. I just said, I believe this information might be relevant to you. It appears Liam has been less than honest about his situation. I hit send before I could lose my nerve. Then, I waited. It was about 9 p.m. For the next hour, I was a wreck. Did I do the right thing? What if she already knew about me and didn't care? What if she showed Liam the email and they both just laughed at me? My mind raced with horrible possibilities. Around 10:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. An email notification. It was from Chloe. My heart leapt into my throat. I opened it with trembling fingers. It was short. Sarah, I'm so incredibly sorry. I had no idea. Liam told me he was single, that he'd just gotten out of a long-term relationship months ago and was living alone, focusing on his work. He said you were an ex who was having trouble letting go. I feel like such a fool. The documents you sent. I don't even know what to say. I need to talk to him. Thank you for telling me. I mean that. Relief washed over me, so potent it almost made me dizzy. She didn't know. She was a victim in this too, in a way. He hadn't just lied to me, he'd constructed an entirely false narrative for her as well. The complexity of his deceit was breathtaking. Now it was time for Liam. I walked to his office. I didn't knock. I just opened the door. He looked up, startled, a frown forming on his face. Sarah? I'm really busy, can it? We need to talk, Liam, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Now. He must have heard something in my tone, because his frown deepened, but he gestured for me to come in. What's up? He asked, trying to sound casual, but there was a new wariness in his eyes. I closed the door behind me. I know about Project Omega, Liam, I began. And I don't mean the app. He blinked. What are you talking about? I know about Chloe, I said, watching his face. The blood drained from it. He looked, for a fleeting second, like a cornered animal. Then, the mask slammed back into place. Chloe? My designer? What about her? She's brilliant, we're making great progress on the... Oh, I'm sure she's brilliant, I cut him off, my voice dripping with a sarcasm I didn't know I possessed. Especially in those sketches you did. For Chloe, with all my love, L. Really touching. He stared at me, speechless. The color was completely gone from his face now. He looked green. And the future_plans.docx? I continued, my voice rising despite my efforts to keep it calm. Planning your new life together? The apartments you looked at? Or, my personal favorite, Liam, the breakup_script_s.docx. Did you really think I was so predictable, so easily managed, that you could script my heartbreak? He just gaped at me. For the first time since I'd known him, Liam, Mr. Always Has an Answer, was utterly floored. How? How did you? He stammered. Does it matter how, Liam? I shot back. What matters is that I know. I know everything. I know you've been lying to me for months. I know you've been seeing another woman, building a life with her, all while pretending everything was fine with us, all while I was worried about you, trying to support your dream project. He finally found his voice, and it was a pathetic, wheezing thing. Sarah, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. I actually laughed. A harsh, bitter sound. Oh, it's not what it looks like? Liam, I have seen the photos. I have read your plans. I have seen the timeline you meticulously crafted to discard me. What part of this isn't what it looks like? He tried to stand up, to come towards me, probably to try one of the tactics from his script, offer comfort but remain firm. I held up a hand. Don't you dare touch me. He sank back into his chair. It just. It happened, he mumbled, looking at his desk, unable to meet my eyes. Chloe and we just connected on a different level. Creatively, and then. It just grew. It just grew while you were living with me? I pressed. While you were sleeping in my bed? While I was making you tea and worrying about your stress levels? Did it just grow when you were drafting a script on how to best minimize your discomfort when you finally decided to detonate my life? Silence. He had nothing. Absolutely nothing. And Chloe, I said, my voice dangerously quiet now. Does she know about me, Liam? The real me? Your live-in girlfriend of 4 years? Or did you spin her a story too? He flinched. That was answer enough. I thought so, I said. Just so you know, she knows now. I sent her a little care package. Some selected highlights from your miscellaneous _personal folder. She wasn't thrilled, Liam. Turns out, she's not a big fan of being lied to either. Imagine that. His head snapped up, eyes wide with panic. You what? You contacted her? Sarah, why would you do that? Why? I almost shrieked. Why? Because I deserved the truth, Liam. And maybe she did too. You built this entire fantasy world on a foundation of lies, to both of us. Did you really think you could just juggle us indefinitely until you decided which one of us to decommission? He looked utterly defeated. I messed up, he whispered. I know I messed up. I was going to tell you. Soon. I was just waiting for the right time. The right time? I scoffed. According to your script, Liam? When your apartment with Chloe was secured. When the app was ready to launch, the one that seems to be in homage to her. Was that the right time? He didn't answer. He just stared at his hands. The silence in the room was thick, suffocating. My anger was still there, a raging inferno, but beneath it, the sorrow was a vast, cold ocean. This was the man I had loved, the man I had planned a future with. And he was a stranger. A cruel, calculating stranger. I want you out, Liam, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Tonight. His head jerked up. Tonight? Sarah, be reasonable. It's late. Where am I going to go? I don't care, I said, my voice flat. You can go to one of those apartments you were looking at with Chloe. Or a hotel. The same one you took her to a couple of weeks ago, perhaps? The one you told me was a co-working space? Figure it out. You're good at planning, remember? He started to protest, to plead. He said he was sorry, so sorry. He said he never meant to hurt me this badly. The words felt hollow, rehearsed, even though they weren't from his script. Or maybe they were from an unwritten appendix. Save it, Liam, I said, my heart feeling like a stone. Your apologies mean nothing to me. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. And that was the crux of it, wasn't it? He had shown no remorse in his meticulous planning, no guilt in his secret rendezvous, no hesitation in crafting my exit. His regret was purely for the fact that his perfect little scheme had unraveled. It took another hour. An hour of him trying to bargain, to explain, to minimize. An hour of me standing firm, my resolve hardening with every pathetic excuse he offered. I felt like I'd aged a decade in the last few days, but I also felt a strange, new strength. The strength of someone who has seen the absolute worst and is somehow still standing. Eventually, he started packing a bag. Just the essentials. He kept looking at me, his eyes pleading, but I offered nothing. No comfort, no forgiveness, no second chances. He had squandered all of that. As he was about to leave, he paused at the door. Sarah. I truly am. Goodbye, Liam, I said, cutting him off. I couldn't bear to hear another lie, another empty platitude. He looked at me for a long moment, his face a mask of misery. Then he nodded, a small, defeated gesture, and walked out. I heard the front door close with a quiet click. And then, I collapsed. The adrenaline, the anger, the forced strength, it all drained out of me, leaving me a sobbing, shaking mess on his office floor. I cried for the man I thought he was. I cried for the future I thought we had. I cried for the 4 years I had invested, loved, trusted, only to have it all revealed as a sham. It felt like my entire world had been a mirage, and it had just evaporated. The next few days, weeks, were a blur. Picking up the pieces doesn't even begin to cover it. It was more like trying to rebuild a city after a nuclear bomb. Everything was contaminated. Every memory, every shared joke, every photograph. Chloe actually reached out to me again a couple of days later. She apologized again, profusely. She said Liam had shown up at her doorstep that night, a rambling, desperate mess. She'd sent him packing. She told me he'd fed her a complete line about being recently single and needing to keep a low profile because of a crazy ex, me, apparently, who was stalking him. She said she was disgusted and horrified, and that she'd already told him their professional collaboration was over too. His Project Omega, the app he built around her, was effectively dead in the water without his lead designer and muse. There was a certain grim satisfaction in that, I won't lie. A small piece of vindication. I started the process of disentangling our lives. Changing the locks. Taking his name off the lease, which was a nightmare of paperwork and fees. Going through our shared belongings, trying to decide what was mine, what was his, what was tainted beyond recovery. Every object held a memory, and now every memory was poisoned. I told my closest friends. They were horrified, supportive. Their anger on my behalf was a strange comfort. It validated my own feelings, made me feel less alone in my outrage. The hardest part was the nights. The apartment felt so empty, so quiet. The silence that I had once craved when he was locked in his office now felt oppressive. Sleep was elusive, and when it came, it was filled with nightmares, replays of his betrayal, of those cold, calculating documents. Reddit, I don't know what I'm looking for by posting this. Advice? Sympathy? Just a place to scream into the void? Maybe all of the above. How do you trust again after something like this? How do you look at someone and not wonder what they're hiding, what script they're writing in their head? It's been a couple of months now since he left. I've had minimal contact with Liam. He sent a few pleading texts, a long, rambling email full of excuses and self-pity. I didn't reply to most of them. What was there to say? He eventually arranged through a mutual friend to pick up the rest of his stuff. Seeing his possessions removed from the apartment was both painful and liberating. I'm in therapy now. Trying to unpack all of this. Trying to understand how I could have been so blind, though my therapist keeps telling me it's not my fault, that manipulators are good at what they do. Liam wasn't just a cheater, he was a con artist, and the product he was selling was a believable, loving relationship. I'm slowly starting to feel. Not okay, not yet, but functional. I'm focusing on work, on my friends, on rediscovering who I am without him. It's like learning to walk again. Some days are better than others. Some days, a song on the radio or a passing comment will send me spiraling back into the anger and the grief. Other days, I feel a flicker of something like peace, or at least a quiet determination to not let this destroy me. The breakup_script_s.docx is still the thing that gets to me the most. The cold, calculated cruelty of it. The fact that he thought he could manage my emotions, my humanity, like I was a variable in an equation. That's the deepest cut. It wasn't just infidelity, it was a fundamental dehumanization. He didn't see me as a partner, an equal. He saw me as an obstacle to be managed on his way to his real life with Chloe. I guess the unexpected twist for me was finding out just how elaborate his deception was, and how he'd lied to Chloe just as much as he'd lied to me. It didn't make my pain any less, but it shifted something. He wasn't just a guy who fell for someone else, he was a deeply dishonest person, weaving a web of lies to suit his own selfish desires. And in a strange way, Chloe reaching out, her own sense of betrayal, it made me feel slightly less crazy. We were both manipulated by the same person. I still have the USB stick with all his files. I don't know what I'll do with it. Part of me wants to burn it, to erase every last trace of his duplicity. Another, darker part of me sometimes fantasizes about. Well, I don't know. Revenge isn't really my style, but the thought of him facing some real consequences for the sheer emotional devastation he caused is tempting. But then I remember that his grand project Omega fell apart, his relationship with Chloe imploded, and he's out on his ear, his reputation with at least one talented designer shot. Maybe that's consequence enough. My biggest takeaway from this, I think, is learning to trust my gut. Those little seeds of unease, those feelings of being dismissed or ignored, they were real. I let him gaslight me into thinking I was being overly sensitive or demanding. Never again. From now on, my intuition gets a seat at the table, front and center. So, Reddit, here I am. Still picking up the pieces, still trying to make sense of the senseless. My world exploded, and I'm slowly rebuilding, but the landscape will never look the same. Will I ever truly trust someone again with my whole heart? I honestly don't know. That's the lingering question that keeps me up at night. But I also know I'm stronger than I thought I was. I survived his carefully orchestrated demolition. And I will rebuild something better, something truer, on my own terms. Maybe that's the real project I should be working on.